June 18th. I'm glad you're all here. We're going to get started. Usually we wait a couple minutes, but we've already got a lot of people on the call and a crowded agenda, so hey, let's just get to work. So, Matthew, let's start off very quickly. Federal funding, what's happening this time?
There's not a huge amount to report. Since the last call, the big news was that the House passed the THUD spending bill. As folks can see on the screen, it was a really close vote. It was 216 to 210, pretty much on party line votes, except 31 Republicans who were, the far right, super conservative, think that it's still spending too much, voted against it. 3 Democrats voted in favor. I thought it was interesting that it wouldn't have passed without those 3 Democrats who did vote for it. And there were also 6 Democrats who didn't vote, and obviously it wouldn't have passed if they had showed up and voted against it, although I suspect they knew in advance that it was going to pass, or they wouldn't have put it on the floor. There were a couple amendments, I'll just mention real briefly, that don't touch counseling directly but are more kind of fair housing related. One prohibits HUD from funding its disparate impact rule, and the other prevents funding for private enforcement of the Fair Housing Initiatives program. I'm not an expert on either one of those. If folks are interested, definitely can do some more research on those. But they were in the final House bill that passed. The other thing, just to mention quickly, is on the Senate side, not with the THUD bill is still not on the appropriations calendar yet, but they did have a defense bill last week that the committee voted on, and that included a move towards undoing sequestration. Mentioned on the last call, and it's still the case, that it's looking increasingly likely that they're going to have to come up with something, the House and Senate are going to have to come up with some sort of a deal that undoes sequestration and raises the spending levels. President Obama's threatened to veto bills, and the Senate Democrats have voted to filibuster spending bills at the current levels. So it's looking increasingly likely that the current numbers, overall numbers, are going to go up, not necessarily the case that the housing counseling budget items will go up. So that's all I've got for numbers.
Good. So, and we don't have any immediate steps for action here. We will certainly post things on the leaders list at the moment when there is, but right now it's not there's not a lot we can do that would really impact the process positively. Good. So, interesting conversation, and I think you all know that we like to, when there's exciting new ideas that are just in the formation process, we like to put them out to people to get feedback and people's input. This is very much on the conceptual side, but there's been a discussion that's involving the administration and a few of us about what will the world look like when HAMP goes away. So it expires in December 2016. There's a possibility that the administration may extend it longer, which would be into the next administration. The Obama administration will come to an end. And there's lots of questions about what the world will look like, because HAMP does require that participants provide a modification. You may recall that one of our frustrations with the CFPB servicing standards, as good as they are, do not require that everybody get offered a modification if it's appropriate. There's no modification mandate. And but there is an opportunity here when all this disappears. Treasury can't mandate it, CFPB won't, but there is an opportunity to think about if the industry might embrace, I mean by that the financial services industry might embrace some kind of a proposal that's acceptable to everybody involved. And what had been attractive, we think, to some of the large lenders / servicers is the idea of having a streamlined modification with reduced documentation requirements. And it's, learning from the lessons of Tier 2, which it's right now it's easier to get a Tier 2 than it is to get a Tier 1. That might be a model. And we have kind of jumped into that conversation and said that the challenge with Tier 2 is that it's not tied to income. It's based on market rate. You can adjust that some, but it's still kind of a uniform. This is what's available given what the market conditions are. So maybe you get a lower rate, but it's not individualized. It's uniform. The idea would be that the lenders would offer this automatically to customers who were in delinquency situations, and that could then trigger a trial mod, and you go from there. We're certainly in favor of getting automatic opportunities for people, but this would not be tied to income, and it was very important to have an income-tied solution so that people who had a loss in income and people who had changed circumstances and people who maybe had permanent loss of income really needed to have a model for them. And so the idea would be, our thoughts was create the equivalent of a tier 1, so tied to income, and maybe add some new bells and whistles, but that it be only available if you come through housing counseling and maybe through legal services. And that the counseling world would be then the source to get an income-based resolution. The resolution should be life of loan, not the 5-year step up. And the idea would be that it's that counseling agencies really provide the full gamut of support, not just working on the mortgage, but also thinking about what other debts people have and trying to get people back on their feet. So the thought would be there'll be some kind of a working group that comes out of Treasury to try to pull together various industry players, the financial services industry, some of the advocates, and hopefully parts of the administration as well, and that we try to hammer something like that out. So this is at the very beginning of a conversation, and we'll be floating these ideas out, but important to kind of get early and substantial feedback on it. The big question, I think, for agencies is, well, how do you pay the bills on this, especially now that NFMC is being contracted, and we operate in a world where funding is tight to begin with. And on that question, some of you may recall a couple of years ago, the Coalition of Intermediaries had a convening where there were lenders and administration people in the room, and the idea came up of taking part of the servicing strip. And to put a little bit more detail on that, the GSEs currently, if you have a Fannie or Freddie mortgage, 25 basis points of your mortgage goes to pay for servicing. And there was a discussion a while ago about, well, that seems a little crazy because the cost of just collecting people's payments and then shooting it out to the appropriate parties is much less than 25 basis points. A fair amount of money comes out every month, and then you get a check every month, or I don't know how it works, but you get the idea. So the thought would be that you break up that 25 basis points, and maybe there's 9 basis points that go to the servicer for doing the routine stuff, and that there be a different fee structure for catastrophic servicing, and maybe it's based on some portion of the servicing strip. Maybe they think about it differently. There's different ways, but that 3 basis points get pulled out specifically to create a funding pool for housing counseling, and that those basis points then become a pool. And we're trying to encourage the thought that it be pre-purchase as well as delinquency counseling, so that you have preventive as well as catastrophic work getting done, and that it create a sizable funding pool that would be available to HUD-approved housing counseling agencies that are doing the work in the field. Lots to be thought through and worked out, and there's certainly no consensus around this, but that's kind of the big idea there. And what? Oh, that's the big idea there, and we are going to continue to work on trying to get these kind of ideas out into the marketplace. But certainly, give us feedback if you are if you've got some thoughts on this. We're going to move through quickly onto the next items of the agenda, so we have enough time for everything. Let's see. Oh, so quickly on settlements, so the Bank of America, so there's $30 million of the last two settlements available. Bank of America's $20 million has been distributed now. So checks, groups got checks, and some sizable checks, so $100,000. Some got $500,000 checks for doing work in the field. Got to say it, for me, this stuff is thrilling. We've worked 4 years really to try to make this a major part of what the settlements are, and certainly there's controversy around it, and it's you know, I wish there's always more available, but the idea that it's rolling out is great. Certainly, if you're an agency that got one of those checks, I would love it if you'd let me know how much you got. I mean, you don't have to, certainly, but this is the stuff that makes my life happy, and we're thrilled about it. So Citibank has at least $10 million that they can potentially, they will put out. Almost certainly they'll put it out by September, and their final decisions have not been made. So certainly if you have relationships with Citibank, now's the time to remind them how great work you're doing, and you know, encourage them to think about including you in the settlement. And you know, we'll do everything on our end to encourage that as well. And you know, hopefully we'll continue pushing to try to get other settlement monies available. The one area where we kind of lost some ground was on IFR, the Independent Foreclosure Review, and OCC decided to take the uncashed checks, some $230 million, and apply them to and cheat them to the states, give them to the states, so they'll continue doing the collection amounts. And we think that's a lost opportunity, but it's also probably conversation over with them. We will continue to try to get the Fed to treat these funds differently, and we'll see what happens there. Okay. We've been doing this series. This is actually our second step in the Innovations in Housing Counseling, where new exciting ideas are affecting our field, and things that we interested in seeing that they grow in our business. One of them is from the New Jersey Community Capital. Howard Banker, some of you may know him, has been in the field of mortgage lending and fair lending for a long time, really figuring out products and opportunities for low and moderate income people. And obviously New Jersey Community Capital has been a very positive force in trying to create things like this as well. So they have been in the process of creating an affordable housing mortgage platform, and we have Howard as a guest today. And we're very interested in this program, partly really in how it intersects with the low and moderate income buyers that most of us spend most of our time working with, and how it intersects with the housing counseling world. So welcome, Howard. Are you there?
I am.
Great. So Howard, why don't you roll us out quickly and give us a big picture view of how the Affordable Housing Mortgage Platform works.
Thanks. Will do, Bruce. So first, NJCC is a CDFI, so it's a trade name, New Jersey Community Capital. So underneath it is a loan fund, pretty substantial loan fund, a real estate development that buys REO and vacant properties and rehabs them for affordable rentals or affordable for sale properties, and our Restart program, which we've purchased about 800 delinquent loans or defaulted loans, and work to modify and keep the homeowners in the house. So the mortgage platform is yet another innovation, another effort under NJCC's hat. What the world didn't need was another mortgage bank. So rather than start this as a mortgage bank, we're investing in an existing credit union service organization. So it's a mortgage platform, it's a fulfillment center and a servicing company that works primarily with credit unions. And so we're going to be a minority owner in a mortgage platform. The credit unions or community banks will still originate the loan. The platform does all the paperwork, and when the loan closes, Cumanet, the company that we'll be an owner of, services the loan. credit unions do not have CRA responsibilities. So what we find very, very exciting about this is they want to do this. They don't have to do this. And so they've established a pool of about $22.5 million, and we're beginning this effort in New Jersey. So a credit union or a community bank will take an application from a low or moderate income family that comes from a counseling organization. So we are working with right now about a half a dozen counseling organizations, large and small, in New Jersey, and our counseling partners cover the entire state. Some are community-based, some are statewide. Our investment in this company will deliver yield to us, and we are using that yield primarily to provide grants to the counseling organizations that are helping the applicants, either long-term or short-term, be qualified for the mortgages that the platform and the credit unions and the community banks will offer. So basically our investment delivers a yield, and that yield, we're going to use most of it to deliver grants. Right now we're given approximately $1,250 per transaction as a grant to the counseling organization to begin the program and to learn the kinks and what else we need to do. When we get to scale, which we expect to do within 12 months, that sum will probably be reduced to $1,000, but right now it's $1,250.
And that's per case when you say that?
That's per case. That's per transaction.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Now we're also testing, as many banks do, giving a small sum to the counseling organization because, as we all know, there are many interested families who are far away from being ready, but they're eager and willing and ambitious, and so over time they can become ready. So we are also exploring giving smaller amounts up front to counseling organizations, and we're sort of testing out these theories and seeing how it'll cash flows. The products basically resemble typical, well, maybe not typical, but at least in New Jersey, they are up to 97% loan-to-value loans, down to 620 FICO, with no mortgage insurance. And so after a 6 or 12-month performance period, NJCC, us, we will purchase pool insurance on the loans in the pool, which then make them more saleable to institutional investors. So the liquidity approach from our perspective is, as banks, and often many of them do, when the end of the year rolls around and they haven't met their CRA requirements, they may be willing to purchase loans either onesie-twosie or in some kind of bulk from the pool, or after a period of time, performance and with pool insurance on them, more institutional investors, socially responsible institutional investors, can purchase these loans in either rated or unrated securities. So our goal is in the first year to provide at least 100 mortgages, and then in the second and third year we're expecting to ramp up substantially. Finally, a few other integration points here. We're focusing on the nonprofit development entities around the state. So many nonprofits deliver real quality, either fully rehabbed housing or new housing that come with subsidies and restrictions on resale, which many lenders are allergic to. We're not. So that'll be a primary source of housing for low-income families, which we think is great. So getting a new house or getting a fully rehabbed house means you're not going to have a leaky roof in 2 years. And for a low-income family with tough margins to begin with, that's a very good thing. We see that as a credit enhancement to the investors. Second, the counseling organization doesn't just do the pre-qual, the assistance with the applicant to bring them to the site and help them if it's the right mortgage product for them. get that mortgage product, but that they are available for up to 10 years on the back end. If that applicant is late, the applicant signs a release for the servicing company, Cuminet, and the counseling organization, allowing the servicing company to notify appropriately the counseling organization so that the applicant, if they wish, and the counseling organization, if they can, kind of can get together and help keep the homeowner in the home, overcome whatever the issue is, and life things happen. Because our goal here is long-term sustainable, affordable home ownership. We actually are also exploring, it's interesting, Bruce brought this up as an initiative. We're also looking at charging investors a larger servicing fee as a way to capitalize, a way to pay the counseling organizations on the back end for, as Bruce described, the catastrophic issues. So if a borrower comes in distress, we can cull some additional funds out of perhaps a larger servicing fee charged to investors to provide it to the counseling organization. So there's ongoing support on the back end. Finally, loans that are sold, obviously, whether they're sold as a securitized structure or as a CRA purchased by community banks or the large national banks or whomever, are sold at a premium, which is typical. So Fannie Mae pays, 100. They pay 2 points to buy a loan. So Ginnie Mae pays a lot more. We're thinking the point spread here will be approximately 3 points. So we will use those funds to replenish the MI grant that we put out so that the borrower doesn't pay for mortgage insurance. We do. Ultimately, the investor does, of course. And we recycle those funds so that the next batch of loans can receive pool insurance. Last thing is we're working with an intermediary in New Jersey, the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey, to potentially become an intermediary to all the counseling organizations in the state so that they can provide oversight and training and support. And from our perspective, and perhaps from an investor's perspective, to make sure that there's a backup so that if the counseling organization on the back end cannot help a distressed homeowner, that there's another counseling organization who is licensed and authorized and approved can support that homeowner if they need and want the help. Down payment assistance programs, closing cost assistance programs, sale of loans to the home loan bank, any possible kind of integration with existing programs that help low-income families achieve and maintain home ownership are available options through this program. And finally, we are very interested and have begun to reach out into other states, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New York, for openers so that this product and program and effort can be copied and offered either through credit unions or community banks in other communities around the U.S. So that's what we're doing.
Well, very exciting. So can you just so where is it offered now? Just New Jersey, is that right?
Just New Jersey, yes.
Okay, and then what? Can you go through the list then of where you think you might expand next?
Well, we've had preliminary conversations in Pennsylvania with some credit unions, in Delaware with CDFI and a bank there, and in New York with credit unions. Those are not including Delaware, but Pennsylvania and New York are large states. So, we like the credit union integration. Credit unions have, many of them, the larger ones anyway, have a lot of cash that they're looking to make investments in, so this allows an expansion of the capital pool as well as many, many members that may not be eligible for the existing Fannie and Freddie products that a lot of these guys offer. So this is maybe falls under more of a portfolio product that would resemble, again, Community Reinvestment Act products that we can make saleable with this new MI pool approach.
Well, and certainly around mortgage insurance, you have a pricing advantage to the Fannie Freddies of the world, and certainly FHA. And the pricing on the mortgage, what would that look like?
Right now it's between 3.75 and 4 fixed. And many credit unions offer ARMs, although many of our counseling organizations and borrowers are a little terrified of ARMs given what has happened previously. But there are some pretty good ARM products out there, sort of capped, rate caps, and they start out very low. And of course, you have to qualify people at the highest possible adjustment rate. But the primary product, Bruce, is fixed. Right now, that's between 3.75 and 4.
Great. And so Matthew, do we have questions queuing up, or should I keep going here?
Yep, we've got a few.
Okay. Okay.
Someone just asked about the DC metro area. I guess if you have any thoughts of expanding to the DC area.
Yeah, we'd be happy to. I mean, we're happy to follow up with people and begin those conversations if you're interested. Cuminet is a national platform. The current owners of the platform are 3 other credit unions, all of which are federal. Affinity Federal Credit Union is the largest owner. They used to be the AT&T Employees Credit Union. They have about $1 billion in mortgages on their balance sheet. They're a $2.5 billion credit union. They have loans in all 50 states. So we'd be happy to talk about expanding the program to DC, yes.
All right. Well, and so just to understand, so what's happening is there's somebody right now listening in Tempe, Arizona, thinking, boy, I'd love to have this program. Do they need to talk to a credit union first? Do they need to, what should they do? What elements do they need to have in place to say that we're ready to talk to you?
Well, the question is who would originate the loan. Remember, Cuminet is a platform, and I'm not sure anybody in Arizona or any place else wants a credit union, even a federal one based in New Jersey, to be making loans to their clients in a state far away. So ideally, there is a local originator that the counseling organization has some good experiences with, and that originating lender could use this platform and all that it possesses and allows them, that institution, it could be a credit union, it could be a community bank, it could be anybody, that is a licensed mortgage lender, and they simply agree to work with the platform, and the platform does all the work for them, and they either keep the loan or they would sell it into this pool, whichever works best. So that organization, we would be interested to work with you, but we would be looking for you to tell us who is the right originator in your community.
Great. Ken Bigos has a couple of questions. First is, what is the maximum allowance of the seller's assist for this product?
3%.
All right. And then he also asked whether any of the agencies that you're working with has had any issues with the appearance of a conflict of interest because the program's giving the incentive to counseling agencies versus other banks that have similar products with the FICO requirement, no MI, and 97% LTV financing.
Part of the approach here, and I think a real fundamental one, is that the counseling organization is working with families, and their job and our strong desire is that they put the person, that family, in whatever the best product is available. If it happens to be this product, that's great. We're happy about that. But I'll give you, for instance, in New Jersey, Santander just came out with a 3% fixed rate product. Well, you know what? That makes way more sense than 3.75. So if there's a better product, then we certainly want to do as many loans as is possible. But part of the other motivation here is to increase the availability of loans to low and moderate income families everywhere. And so if competition can make that happen, boy, are we happy.
Great. Someone asked if there's requirements in terms of the number of hours required for the counseling for each client?
No, it's first of all, everybody is not a qualified counselor. We actually will work with the counseling organization to, and again, that's why we're working with HUD intermediaries who are more familiar with establishing criteria than we are. The counseling organizations we've selected in New Jersey, we went through a fairly significant vetting process with them. They supported our Restart program where we work with families to modify existing loans that we significantly wrote down. So we selected the best of the best, in effect. We would be happy to work with you and share the qualifications we expect, but they're not rocket science. If you do any kind of counseling to scale, and certainly if you've done modification work, I suspect you're very qualified.
Great. Someone in Florida also is interested in you expanding down there. I suspect that's true of most states that are represented on the call. Someone else, if you could just go back over where you got the initial $20 million investment from.
It was actually drug money. It came from Colombia, I believe. It actually comes from. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. NJCC has a very strong balance sheet, so we are investing. It's approximately $2 million to buy the 10% ownership share of Cuminet, which is a is a for-profit company owned by nonprofits, but for-profit nonetheless. So we are buying shares that come from our balance sheet. So it's an equity investment by us in an existing company.
Okay. Can the local originator be a CDFI?
Yes.
All right.
And in fact, it is probably going to be that in Delaware, so yes.
Okay. Are DAPs perceived as soft seconds? How are they perceived and handled by primary lender?
We review those sort of individually, but we're fairly familiar with all the different kinds of them. And as some of you may know, in New Jersey, there is all kinds of different products. Home, there's COA, Council of Affordable Housing restrictions. There are deed restrictions. We're considering land trust transactions. So unless something is really, really, really crazy, we're pretty open.
Okay. And can you just say the name again of the platform? Or spell,
well, we're actually hiring a marketing company to help us brand it, but right now we just call it the mortgage platform.
Okay.
And the company that is the working company is Cumanet, Cumanet, and www.cumanet.com, and you can see what they look like.
All right. And is the product only available for houses that were recently built or rehabbed?
No. It's even available for refis.
Oh.
And then the last question in the queue for now is if you could just expand a little on the compensation for the counseling agency.
Sure. So right now, the way we've worked it is we signed a memorandum of understanding. NJCC does with the counseling organization. They send us an invoice monthly or quarterly on transactions that have closed, and we provide them funds based on that. We are exploring with a couple of the counseling organizations here in New Jersey, providing them funding, a modest amount, something along the lines of $100 or $125 per transaction up front, because some families come and they're 12 to 15 months away from being ready, and so we're testing that theory out and taking that approach. So that right now is how this is working.
And how are you then selecting the housing counseling agencies that participate?
Again, here we've done it because we've already done a bunch of good work to pre-qualify counseling organizations. So we took advantage of our work on the Restart program and picked 6 of the very best of those approved counseling organizations. Going forward, ideally, we would work with an intermediary in whatever state that counseling organization is working in, or we could pre-qualify that counseling organization ourselves using the same criteria we did here in New Jersey. That was why we have this interest to work with an intermediary, because obviously if you're going to expand nationally, trying to do this one at a time doesn't make a lot of sense. So the intermediary we would provide funding to, and we're helping that intermediary fundraise to allow it to manage a multitude of counseling organizations that report to it. So we're open to either working with you as an individual organization, or if you're interested in an intermediary position and manage and work with other counseling organizations, we're happy to take that approach too.
And there was just a question of whether, is there a website that you can point people to if they're to learn more about this?
Well, I would have loved if there was one ready. There isn't. That's probably not going to be ready till September. So both the New Jersey Community Capital website, the Affinity Federal Credit Union website, and then Cuminet all have information on the site talking about this, but we are just going ahead and doing it and sort of testing out all of these approaches and assumptions, and expect to have a website up on or before September.
Great. And are you providing ongoing trainings for housing counseling agencies to participate, or what's the on-ramp for groups once they're in?
Well, that also goes then to the intermediary approach. We are looking then for the counseling intermediary, and it could be one that works in multiple states to continue to provide the training for the organizations under its either HUD intermediary status or just whatever relationships it has with its affiliates, and we would work with it to do upgraded training, again, around specific issues that come out of this program. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One is we've had these credit unions create, and we're testing a portal which allows the counseling organizations to pre-qualify people using this product, and in fact it has a built-in Fannie qualifying engine. So it allows the counseling organizations sort of real-world access to underwriting criteria that the GSEs use. So they can learn for folks when they are or are not ready and why. And we think that's very, very exciting that the credit unions are offering that access to the counseling organizations here.
So is the underwriting being done as desktop underwriter from Fannie Mae, or what's the underwriter?
Well, all the loans pass through desktop underwriter, but they're manually underwritten. Every one of these loans is manually underwritten. Many immigrant families, and we're exploring offering ITIN loans, by the way.
Oh,
we're not offering them yet, but we're working towards that. But, many immigrant families don't use credit, and so their FICOs are 620 or 640. That doesn't make them bad people. It just means that they don't use credit. So that obviously would be a strong reason that any good lender would offer manual underwriting.
And you use alternative credit then, and the housing counselor could develop the credit file for somebody, and that would be used as part of the evaluation.
Absolutely, yes. And this system, this portal, allows the counselor to create an application for their client, either with the client with them or with the client on the phone, and then allows the client to actually take over the application process, or it allows the applicant to go right into the portal themselves and create an application themselves. So no application is taken until the client allows a pull on their credit report. So again, this allows a lot of structuring and work between the counselor and the client and the lenders, so that people don't start paying for appraisals and credit reports and all the rest if they're not ready.
Well, this sounds great. Howard, do we have another question here? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you may have gone over this, but the question is whether, oh, maybe it's different, but the question is whether loan applications are funded by your organization. If so, how long is your turnaround time?
We are not a lender. So we did this deliberately, again, not to create yet another new mortgage bank. The credit unions or the community banks are the lender. So we don't fund the loans. They do. The loan is made by them using this system, using their money. And then they either keep the loan if they wish or sell the loan into the pool, which right now is $22.5 million. So from our yield in the investments we're making in this mortgage platform, that is how we fund the grants to the counseling organization. Did that answer it, Matthew? Or?
I think so, yeah. Thank you.
And does the borrower need to become a member of the credit union?
Yes. And so the borrower needs to become a member of the credit union. In New Jersey, we've been able to work out, because they're federal credit unions, an allowance that the borrower becomes a member of the Credit Union Foundation's extended group. So it's not a big deal. And the foundation puts up to $5 to create the member's account. The credit union member at that point doesn't need to use any other financing options or tools that the credit union may offer. Just having that $5 in makes them a member and they're eligible for the program. But we think for a lot of low-income families, being a member of a nonprofit cooperative lending institution, which is what a credit union is a really cool thing. And generally, they offer really good finance products at pretty good pricing. So we think that's the best outcome for people. They don't have to take it, but we think it's a great option.
Well, good. I think I think this is really helpful, and I'd like us to maybe revisit this conversation with you in 6 or 9 months once you've got some more under your belt, and have we'd love to know what the learnings are, what us as a housing counseling industry can learn from this, but also what more opportunities are created. So thank you very much, Howard. Great work.
Thank you, Bruce.
Good. Okay. Well, let's keep rolling here. So wanted to highlight a few things that are upcoming. So our friends at FireSpring are going to do a webinar with us on, and the idea is how to increase your constituency base and donations through social media. And it's a more targeted thing, and it's really how to think about your role in the community that you're in, and how to use things like blogging and become a thought leader. It's a little more abstracted than the other ones we've done with them, but as you all know, there's lots of practical stuff in these webinars. I'm interested in seeing where they go with this. We'll see what happens. It's been a year and a half since we had Sarah on our, I guess a year and a few months since we had Sarah Jarek on our leaders call. I just suggested it to her, and she was very eager, and so that will be July 9th. I am very interested in recruiting questions. People like, what would you like us to talk about? There'll be opportunities to write in questions and potentially to call in as well. But if we could structure it a little bit, they asked for stuff ahead of time, but good old Sarah, she's willing to take things on the fly as well. So it's, but if you've got some thoughts about things we ought to be tackling with her, we'll live in the world where they're involved in rulemaking. So she's limited in what she can say on certification until the final rule is out. Though there has been information coming out from it. Looks like October is the timing for when they're expecting that the final rule to be published. So this is a great opportunity, and I'm interested in encouraging sort of the big picture of conversations with Sarah. She is a big thinker about our work. She also has tremendous depth about having seen lots of operations and see what's happening around the country. So thinking of what we can learn from her would be a good opportunity. So always enjoyable. So mark your calendar, July 9th. We'll put the invites out on Monday for these webinars, and you can sign up. Another area where we're going to do a deep dive is under student loan debt. It's really because you guys have been asking for this. And Matthew's tracked down the group Student Debt Crisis, which is the group that did that large petition. I mean, there were a number of groups involved, but they were the lead on the large petition that got over 1 million signatures to the Obama administration. They have a pretty in-depth knowledge about student loan resolutions, and so we're talking with them about doing a whole initiative around housing counseling, probably with some more in-depth webinars that would be for your staff as well as you in the fall. But we were going to have Natalia Abrams from Student Debt Crisis on as our guest in the next call on the 23rd. And the idea here is there are things that every housing counselor should be able to do with a client who's got student debts. There are some things that are a lot more detailed that we probably want to hand over to specialists and figuring out who those specialists are. There's some very high quality work being done, but there's also obviously some stuff that some people refer to as sketchy, but I think some of it would be predatory and frustrating. But there's terrific, good players out there. We're trying to assemble that list so that we can make that available to the housing counseling community. There are also some things where an attorney should be handling the situation. She's linking us up with some leading attorneys, and we'll probably bring in the National Consumer Law Center as well to help us figure that out. But the idea is to give your counseling staff the tools to really help with people with student loan debt. One of the problems with the servicers who handle loan debt is that they do not tell people about the income-based opportunities people have, and are reluctant to go into the kind of forbearance agreements that sometimes are appropriate for people. So trying to get us to understand that as managers, and then something more in depth for the counseling community later on. So that will be the July 23rd session. And then for those groups that are members of NHRC, we're going to have the next HUD compliance seminar, webinar. Teresa Bardwell has been doing these, has often brought HUD in on these conversations. They're very high caliber, and this one will be on information security and both understanding what HUD requirements are and also practically what agencies should do. But this is only open to NHRC members. So I'm going to be in Kansas City on Thursday, July 9th, and what I'd like to do is do a meeting with housing counselors. So when I travel around the country, try to carve some space out and just talk with people in the local markets. And these are freewheeling sessions. I'll ask questions about access to credit. What are you seeing in terms of the delinquency field, rental, whatever you want to talk about. I'll provide updates on the latest cutting-edge issues, but really I'm more there to find what you're seeing in the field and how we can translate that into public policy. A year ago and some months we did this in Tampa, Florida. Sylvia Alvarez was critical in this, and Cora Fulmore and others. That conversation has been very helpful, and we've elevated a series of issues with FHFA about the cash buyers and problems with the Fannie Mae First Look program. And, I mean, these are all learning experiences for me. So I do need a sponsor. So if you're in Kansas City and centrally located or easy for people to get to, or you can sponsor or suggest somebody that does it. I'll be working on the next week to try to line this up, and please feel if you're in the Kansas City area, and people travel from quite a far distance in Florida, come to the meeting, and it was really appreciated on my part, so do what you can. Okay, so Matthew, so we did a financial capability counseling standards comment. Matthew did the work. What did we do?
Thanks. So we submitted just a pretty brief comment on the issue that I had flagged on the last leaders call, which was that in the financial capability counseling national industry standards proposal, they had basically said that the standards would apply to standalone financial capability counseling, but also to financial capability counseling that was a component of other types of housing counseling, so pre-purchase or foreclosure prevention or rental, whatever it might be. The concern that triggered was that since essentially all counseling includes a financial capability component, framing it in those terms could lead to all housing counselors being subject to to be in compliance with the national industry standards, having to do the certification that was also proposed, as well as the continuing education that was also proposed. I don't think that was their intent, but so we basically in the comments said, asked them to clarify that going forward, that the financial capability counseling certification and continuing education requirements are not meant to apply to financial capability counseling that's done in the course of other types of counseling, when it's just the typical what counselors are doing day in and day out, that it applies to a higher level of financial capability counseling. We did include that if that was the intent, that we would not be supportive of that we thought that would be too burdensome to put, especially in light of the upcoming HUD certification, that it would essentially be requiring all counselors to do the certification and the 10 hours of continuing education. So that was where we came down, and I think that was what kind of came out when we brought it up on the call 2 weeks ago. Just asked for clarification and asked them to, when they come out with the final standards, to address that.
Good. So on our before we close, I mean, one thing I'd like to just encourage people to think about is, if you're not already a member of National Housing Resource Center, please think seriously about joining. We are doing a lot of work with the administration right now to figure out ways to integrate housing counseling much more effectively within the work that is being done in housing around the country and among policymakers. We've had a terrific conversation with the White House and with the National Economic Council and with FHFA Commissioner Ed Golding, Mike Stegman from NEC, about what things might look like in the future. Sarah Jarik's been involved in this. We presented this idea of the principles, which we kind of crowdsourced from you all, and we're thinking that this whole conversation about what does the world look like post-HAMP creates some sets of opportunities in the same way. We're doing a lot of deep dive work with the CFPB and integrating housing counseling, and also working a lot on language access so that people who aren't fluent in English have opportunities. We'll continue doing this kind of work. We will continue trying to explore areas like student loans and figuring out how counselors can be better armed at dealing with the student loan issues and take advantage of opportunities that are available but not as widely known as they should be. We'll continue doing this stuff. We'll have Sarah Jarik next in a couple of weeks. We really do want to kind of get your input and your engagement to figure out what more we can do. Being a member means that you'll get discounts. It means that you will get you'll get access to the member-only webinars. It'll also mean that we occasionally send out notices of funding that are maybe local to your area or nationally that aren't as a little bit outside of the box of what traditionally housing counseling applies for. And we really aim those at the members so that people are thinking about more broadly about what their field of work is and what the funding opportunities are. But really why people join is simply that you're supporting our ability to do this work and be more flexible about it. We do get funding from lenders, and we are applying for foundation money, but in terms of the most flexible money, the money that we can use for lobbying, the money that we can use for telling it like it is in the right moments, that really has been coming from membership dues. And a quarter of our budget is from membership dues. So we raised over $60,000 last year. This is incredibly valuable to us, and we're encouraging others to join who haven't joined already. We are, and for members that we are in a renewal drive right now. We have a lot of groups that joined at the beginning of last year, and we're now recruiting memberships. And thank you so much. We actually had 6 renewals come in this week so far, so that's really appreciated. It's always a little cheer that happens up when we have people either join or renew, and we appreciate that a lot. So just a quick reminder, next week we're going to have, next call we're going to have Sarah Jarek. So please send me ideas for what you'd like to have as questions or topics, and we will have a pretty good conversation, I think, with her in 2 weeks. And then we'll be working on the student loan debt for the next call after that. All right, everybody. Great work you're doing out there. We really appreciate it, and we'll be in touch.